ladies and gentlemen, in the blue corner, standing at a sleek 5'11", 245 pounds, the tumultuous tempest of technique, Thomas Lilly. And in the red corner, at a curvaceous 5'11", 315 pounds, the jovial juggernaut of judgment, John Cheryl Sheridan. A meeting of the masters of mastication. Turn your attention as they delve deep into all things lifting and more. This is Peak Speak.
All right, welcome back to Peak Speak. Today we're joined by two very special guests.
Jests?
Yeah, guests.
I thought you were going to say jerks.
I went to say Chad and guest at the same time. So we've got Marisa, Inda.
Two very special chests.
Yours are more valuable than mine.
Marisa, Inda,
Excellent.
and of course Chad Wesley Smith. I'm Thomas Lilly, as always.
I'm John Sheridan. That is us.
Thanks for having us, boys.
Thank you for being here. So we're sitting in the aptly described by Chad rugged backdrop that is the backyard of Burley Strength.
It makes me feel tough and hardcore.
Yeah, well, we're all about that hashtag beast mode here at Burley Strength. That's our thing. So Chad and Marisa are in town on their way to Pro Raw at the Arnold's this weekend. They're in town tonight, and we were in town last night doing a squat workshop at Burley. So we've got another one tonight. And we thought we'd sort of sit down and talk lifting, because, you know, that's what you do with people that also like lifting.
Of course. So you guys don't really need an introduction to the majority of people that are going to be watching this, but
All 7 of them.
for formalities, can you please introduce yourselves and maybe a little bit about who you are, what you've done?
Okay, I'm Marisa Inda. So you guys be saying it wrong over here.
I always love that you pronounce it perfectly every time, and everyone else is like, yeah, I can never get it right.
Well, you see the confused look on the Australians' faces, and then I just have to be like, Marisa.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Follow it up.
Yeah, perfect.
I am the current 52 kilo world champion in the IPF and the current world record total holder in the IPF. I probably shouldn't be sitting with you guys. Get in trouble over here.
You're way stronger than all of us combined.
Yeah, by a long way.
That's a 430 kilo total at 52 in sleeves for the kilo fans out there. Probably most of them.
Well, yeah, given this is an Australian podcast in Australia, yeah, I'd say so.
You guys don't measure your weight by kangaroos like that?
No, exclusively in newtons.
Yeah. 18 and a half roos.
Yeah. A standard row is about 4.5 pounds.
I'm Chad Wesley Smith, as the founder of Juggernaut Training Systems. I coach this young lady here among many other very strong lifters in America and elsewhere. Total of 1,055 kilos in knee wraps, which at the time I think was like the 9th highest total. It's moved down that list quite a bit since then. And that's pretty much the gist of it, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So 1,055, you did that here, right?
I did. My 2 highest totals ever, both in Australia. 1,050 at
Something in the water.
1,050 at GPA Worlds in 2014, and 1,055 at Pro Raw 7.
And then Pro Raw 8 you came back and did in sleeves, right? And no belt.
And no sleeves.
No sleeves, completely raw, real raw.
Yeah, they made me wear a singlet, to some people's dismay. But I did. I was 952, and just a singlet there. I was not in my best shape, but it was fun nonetheless.
I don't know, you turned down coming out for beers the night before.
Oh yeah, I gotta have a bit of focus. I was glad to be able to tell EMOD this year that I wouldn't need to stay in on Saturday night.
Perfect. Yeah.
Very good. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about what Juggernaut is and what you guys do?
Yeah, so started Juggernaut in the fall of 2009, and really began as a sport performance gym. In 2009, there would have been no way to have a powerlifting gym in America, and I wasn't even a powerlifter at the time. I was throwing the shot put. So I began powerlifting in 2010, and our presence in that arena grew more and more, particularly as we began to do more, just produce more online content, which began in late 2010 with the Juggernaut Method, which my first ebook, the first of the books that I really know that was called the Something Method, so should have TM'd that while I had the opportunity.
You would have made way more money on trademark infringements than you would have anything else. It would have been perfect.
Yeah, so from there our online presence really continued to grow, and that's really what the company is about now, is providing educational resources to coaches and athletes in powerlifting and weightlifting through our YouTube, podcast, ebooks, as well as providing events like this at Burley tonight, seminars all across the world really, and then providing coaching to athletes in powerlifting and weightlifting, which we have a team, as well as seven coaches that work with us, and some pretty strong lifters.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we love the work that you guys put out, and the resources that you've put out, I think, have informed a lot of coaches like John and myself in terms of better training principles. The big work that you've done with the scientific principles of strength training, I think, has really led the way in reshaping or building this idea that we can be smart about training, and that we can bring some science and intelligence into it, and it's not just go hard until you die kind of thing, which kind of segues well into what we wanted to talk a bit more about today.
You gotta go until right before you die.
Yeah. And then have a week off, come back again, you'll be sweet.
That's called deloading, right?
Yeah, something like that. I think, like on that note, I consistently recommend that book to everyone. It's the first training book I recommend to people, because like I've tried to read all the deep Russian text where it's like, I love this shit and I enjoy reading about it, but holy fuck, they are dense, and it's it's hard work to get through. Whereas I read Scientific Principles the first time like in a day or so, because it's actually like you take all these really excellent, deep and complex sort of ideas, and I think the thing you guys do well across all of your platforms is condense all of those ideas and make them palatable to the everyman / woman that is powerlifting.
Yeah, that's something that we've really been mindful of, and Dr. Mike is the overwhelming author of Scientific Principles. Yeah. So it's important that he's Russian, so it's always good to have a Russian write the book, but thankfully he wrote it in human.
Yes.
Rather than like science.
Badly translated Russian.
Yeah, Science and Practice, which got written in Russian and then translated to English, but not really to human English.
Yeah, no. I think you could do a whole university degree based entirely on that book and do, a semester, a chapter in it. It'd still take you 10 years.
Yeah, we're very, very proud of it, and it's been a great exercise for me as a coach, putting that information out there to people, to having to be even more mindful of every decision I make in an example program or online coaching, that you can almost like paint yourself into a corner. It's like, well, I've taught you too well, and now you're trying to call me out on shit. So, but yeah, we're very proud of that, and I think it does take a unique skill, and it's something we're very mindful of, to take the information and make it understandable without diluting what it's actually saying. Because it's one thing to dumb it down, and it doesn't mean the same thing anymore. And I think that book does a really good job of retaining the full breadth of the information, but still being able to be understood. Yeah,
and I think that's really important as well, because the average audience for powerlifting isn't people with exercise science degrees. Especially, even though powerlifting's come a long way in the 7 or 8 years I've been involved in it, and the average powerlifter is now much, much smarter than they were then, but still not at a point where they have a communications degree and actually understand the entirety of a university level textbook like that, which I think is what's making that information a lot easier. We talked about this earlier about having social media and how that's had an impact upon powerlifting and the success of powerlifters, but also in many cases the downfall, which is where you were going to segue into earlier, but I cut you off. We're going to talk about longevity. This is something that I think you guys are obviously quite passionate about. Marisa, you've been lifting for some time now, and I think a lot of people miss that, especially in the evolution of powerlifting over the last 5 or 6 years, where I almost reckon, I was saying to Thomas earlier today, I think it's like a 4-year cycle. It's like a year where you kind of burst onto the scene, maybe you get a few Instagram followers, then you got like a year and a half, maybe 2 tops, where you do well, and then they get hurt and either they're constantly rehabbing an injury, or you never hear from them again, or worse, you hear from them again and they're exactly the same as they were before that. Can you sort of speak to how, or the importance of the idea of longevity and how that influences what you guys have done?
Well, for
You've been
me,
doing it
like,
the longest.
because I'm the oldest.
Age before beauty.
Oh, okay. Stupid. For me, I think lifting is one of the few sports you can do well into like your 70s, 80s, as long as you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I think one of the big problems with social media, and I think this is why people just continually get hurt, they do it for the gram. You know, you're doing these big lifts and you get hurt, and then all of a sudden you can't post that, you know,
Yeah.
big squat or that big deadlift. So
That's what TBTs are for.
about the TBTs.
Me and John are all about the
I was
TBTs right
saying
now.
to Thomas just this afternoon, I was like, yeah, maybe once a year I post my best lift ever, and it's like just that reminder, mostly to myself, that I used to be strong.
That was relevant.
Yeah, back in the day.
I think there's that innate fear if you take a couple step backs to rehab that you won't be able to get back to that
Yeah.
same level. And you know, I've had like sciatic issues. Chad's had his disc issues, but you know, there's always workarounds, and you'll come back stronger for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so easy, especially as a lifter begins to rise to prominence or have whatever success is relative to them, to feel like if they don't get it all now, then they're never going to get it. And to look, you know, at someone like Marisa, who's been training for 24 years, or you know, earlier today we're with Liz Craven, who's a couple years older than Marisa, Jen Thompson, and then even greater examples like a Dave Ricks, 58, 59 years old, Tony Harris, people who are still at the elite levels, you know, of the open class in the IPF. A small tangent from that, as Marisa was being introduced the 2 weekends ago at the Grand Prix event at Arnold in the U.S., the announcer, who will remain nameless here, said, you know, Marisa Inda, she's a Masters 1 lifter who's still competitive with the open class. Well, not an untrue statement. You know,
The wrong way to look at it.
yeah, being the open world record holder and world champion is probably saying competitive in the open class, maybe a bit of
I think at that point you're an opens lifter who could lift in Masters if you wanted to.
It's a bit sold her short a little bit on that. But yeah, so this idea that they got to get it all now, and that's, I think, very often going to lead to training too heavy too frequently. So not giving enough attention to more general phases of training, to maybe competing too frequently, and doing that leading to more mediocre performances rather than, yeah, not to say like to put all your eggs in one basket, but to put all your eggs in fewer baskets of less frequent competition. Like Marisa competes 3 times a year. Now it's USAPL Nationals, so our IPF affiliate. I know you guys Australians don't know what those are anymore, but so we have a national
That
event.
doesn't timestamp this episode when we finally release it in 6 to 9 years. Really great.
So that's usually in September, October for us, and then comes back at the Arnold in the US in March for whatever event we have there, and then in June IPF Worlds. And I think we've become more and more successful for her, and I see mistakes I made in my own lifting, looking at what we're doing with her now, is that we're making sure to give this distinct block of time in between competitive training cycles for, you know, you want to call it general training, it might as well just be called like fuck around time, fun training for a month or 6 weeks or 8 weeks to allow her to get healthy and to stay healthy. Where something I fell into with my own competing was doing a meet, having a good result, but maybe not quite as good a result as I wanted, and coming back and trying to come back and do another meet right away because I felt like it was so close, it was right there.
I left it all on the table. It's like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, and when this began, it was the meet I made my total PR at Pro Raw 7, November 2015, here in Australia. Totaled 1,055 on 5 for 8. So I lost.
You didn't have a good day that day, did you?
Yeah, the total was good, but like looking at it, I was like, oh, this could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
And when you look at how close something was, like that 450 squat, that I was 9/10 the way up with, and lost my balance. And
do you think if you hadn't walked it out and you'd taken advantage of the monolift, you would have made that squat?
No, as I've never used the monolift, so.
But if you'd like actually trained into using a monolift, do you think it would have made a difference? I don't know, you were hating on monolift users yesterday.
Yeah.
That's
so
cheating.
just pointing out that maybe you could have been saved.
Well, yeah, it would have just been a hollow accomplishment.
The knee wraps didn't do that for you anyway?
No. Took that meet and then tried to come back 2 weeks later and begin hard training to do the LA Fit Expo because I was like, oh, there was so much more. I should have squatted 10 kilos more. I just didn't bench to what my training would have shown there because a bit of a shoulder injury that happened in the squat. So I came back and tried to do this hard training. I had 2 or 3 weeks of good training, and then not an injury, but I believe that the Australian term is a niggle. I want to make sure that was
allowed to say that?
pronounced correctly. And so having a few of those here and there, and which led 2 or 3 weeks of good training, and then 2 or 3 weeks of kind of beat up training that was going shitty, of course, because you can't lift these kind of weights not near 100% health, and then leads to another 2 or 3 weeks of no training, like fuck this, I don't want to do powerlifting anymore, I hate this, and then
Now you're here.
yeah, and then into this time of fuck around training, training that was just fun to me at the time, and did that for 4 or 5 months, and then it was like, okay, time to train hard again. Came back, train hard, got really strong again for big dogs, and then basically did this exact same thing over again. Had a good but not great performance that I felt so much more was right there. So let's turn around and do another meet again.
Yeah.
And the exact same cycle of events began with that, where if I would have done what we have Marisa do, take my own advice, and instead of trying to turn right back around into a meet, say, all right, we're going to take 2 months of fuck around fun training and get healthy, rather than 2 to 3 months of time I was beating my head against the wall trying to get strong, and then having to take 3 months of fuck around time after, and now we're looking at 6 months of
Essentially wasted time.
yeah. Then we could have been doing things a lot different. And so for people to be able to take this step back and say, a month, 2 months of not the hardest possible training, and things that are just a break for the body, a break for the mind, is going to give them so much more in the long term, even though it may be tough for them to understand that in the short term.
I think you're in a pretty unique position as well. John and I were talking earlier about coach versus coach/athlete, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Coming from an athletic background, it's like you've got this devil and angel on your shoulder, right? And the athlete sometimes screams so much louder, especially when you place such high expectations of yourself. And sometimes I wonder if that's compounded, this is relating to myself, compounded with the fact that you can do better, and you also know the methods of making yourself better.
You know what you did wrong, you know where you made the mistakes.
Yeah, and that kind of overshadows this concept of, well, hey, no, I need to pull back for a while and aim a little bit further down. Like, I can fix it straight away. I can do this, I was just wondering your experience with this whole coach versus athlete thing.
There's plenty of times, and I'll even say it in seminars, as a do as I say, not as I do type of thing. Usually that relates to 40-ish kilo jumps in the squat from first to second, but but it is.
That's still only like 10%.
Yeah.
That's not that
Yeah.
bad.
But it is tough to kind of take your own advice in some of those times when it's so close. It's right in front of you to kind of take a step back and see the big picture and how it all relates, and just to set your ego aside with it, where it's a lot easier, probably for Marisa to take my advice on it, and than if it was up to her own. Like, because even Chris now is like, she wants to pull a max deadlift a week after and do another meet right away, and just kids these days.
Tired.
Just
Well, more
do
than
what you
anything,
say.
when you're hurt, I just want to live life normal.
Yeah.
When it's hard to get out of your car, when my son would try to jump on my back and I'm like drop kicking him to stay away. It's like I don't want to have to be like that. So more than anything, it's life outside the gym that you want to like.
There's plenty of times where you want to drop kick him.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean,
He wouldn't be your son if you didn't want to drop kick him occasionally.
this is true.
I'm sure my parents wanted to drop kick me a few times. I think there are 2 points I'd like to touch on there. A, you're a well-established long-term self-coach athlete. I would like you to just maybe expand on how that has influenced how you coach as well. Because obviously, like, I know I've actually trained at my best. We're just going to deal with this plane landing in the background in a second. I've performed at my best as a lifter when someone else is doing my own training. Because I know for me, like, I'm a professional coach, that's what I do. I often find I get stuck in that, like, over-analyzing, overthinking things, maybe trying to do too many things at once. What's your experience like, both as writing your own training, but also how has that then impacted or had an impact upon how you coach others?
Yeah, so I've pretty much been writing my own training almost the majority of my lifting career, my training career, since I was about 14 years old. Small exceptions.
Now like 38?
31. Yeah, I'm not aging well, so I understand. And Marissa's convinced I'm actually 41. There's some sort of cryo chamber
That's what I'm
involved
thinking.
in my.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
I've, for a long time, been the oldest one of the young group of my friends. I know the feeling.
So, with the exception of some coaching during college for track, and then Josh Bryant was my only powerlifting coach for my second and third meets of my career. I always want to give a lot of credit to Josh. With more than anything, opened my eyes to like what was humanly possible.
I was going to say, did you give that up because it's crazy and you got sick of having to work so hard?
They were fucking brutal. Hardest training I've ever done for sure. But beyond that, just always. I figured that no one else was going to do it better than I did, and I'd communicate with Dr. Mike probably the most of anyone recently. It's a frustrated strength coach trying to sneak up on us.
Can you sneak up on someone when you're in the same shot?
It's hard to tell. The last 2 days have really warped my perception. But yeah, it can certainly be hard to be objective, and it can be hard to make yourself do the things that you don't like doing, even though you may need to do them.
Yeah.
One area where I probably did a lot better with Josh coaching me than with my own writing my own programs is accessory work.
I was just about to say, was it accessory work? Because that's how I feel about my own training as well. Yeah, I'll do those squats. I'm not going to do those front squats afterwards, though.
But so having to report back to him weekly, I guess I could have just lied about it, but I preferred not to do that.
Upstanding man. High moral character.
Yeah, where, for myself, Marisa gives me a hard time because I would make these alterations to the program and say, well, why can't I do that? And so it's not your program. Whatever I do is the program.
It's hard to go off program when you're not on the program.
Yeah, it was all up here, so it's whatever happened was the program. So that was probably the toughest thing, is keeping yourself accountable, especially because I trained by myself for the majority of that time. People remember those Instagram videos. There's in the corner.
In the corner of a CrossFit gym.
Yeah, squatting 3 times more than anyone else in the
3 times the group.
Anyone else in the building. So it became easy to kind of maybe give myself some shortcuts here and there. I think if people have access to in-person coaching, would be the best option, because then there's no way for you to escape the details, the breathing drills and the warm up and whatever movement prep you need, and of course hands-on daily coaching for technique, which after a while is not a huge thing. It's like squat, bench, deadlifts are not that fucking complicated that you need someone over you every single rep of every day. Hopefully not. And then all the little accessory stuff. But I always enjoyed the challenge of the programming, and I think that's why I was able to be very successful as a lifter. That there was a lot of other people more talented than me, but not able to focus their efforts.
Do you think it's an ego thing?
Well, maybe. I guess I don't know who I would have chosen to coach me. I knew what Josh. Josh is a great coach, and he's had a lot of other good lifters, but I can't see anyone else that I would have had do it. So.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the coach-athlete thing as well. Because when I'm coaching someone, I want them to put everything on me, so if something goes wrong, they can say, that was your fault. And I can learn from that and become a better coach. And when you're doing it yourself, you're putting everything on yourself, so you know that if something goes wrong, you can't be like, well, I've wasted all this time with this coach instead. One thing on the longevity, so you were talking before about drop kicking Chris. You're a mother.
I won't watch this.
It was really cool to watch the Juggernaut Instagram story the other day. A day in the life of yourself. You're one of the best powerlifters in the world, and I think sometimes people forget that powerlifting doesn't make a lot of money, and there's life outside.
You're not a professional powerlifter? Fuck, I've been lied to this whole time.
Sponsored by Pints and PRs though, right?
Yeah, don't mind the Lamborghini we rolled up in today.
Yeah, I mean...
you can fit in a Lamborghini, let's be honest. I've sat in a Ferrari. You're a lot bigger than that.
Alright, you don't fit right.
Hey, I lost Pro Raw 6.
Hashtag humble brag.
Yeah,
I've sat in a Ferrari.
I lost at Pro Raw 6. I came dead last by a long time, and Emad said I could drive his Ferrari.
To cheer you up?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So, outside of powerlifting, there's life. And I think that's one of the really important things about this whole concept of longevity, is that people forget that there's more important things than just lifting weights. So, as a world champion, can you talk a bit about how you balance life versus sport?
Well, so I have the best coach. My training takes like an hour 20. I mean, I've talked to Liz Craven, and she'll be in the gym for 3 or 4 hours. There's no freaking way I would want to be in the gym that long. I mean, I love it, but I don't like it that much. So
I love it, but I don't like it.
I love it. No, I just don't like it that much to be in the gym for 4 hours out of the day, taking up, half of my life. So
yeah,
so I still have to take my kids to school, help them with homework, take and watch my son do boxing, hang out with Wesley over here. So
yeah,
it's easy to strike a balance when your training isn't taking up 4 hours.
Yeah. Because one thing that kind of bugs me about when people are getting too serious about powerlifting and powerlifting, I'm like, all right, we're on.
Hashtag professionals. Minor technical malfunction. Not the first of our episodes to have one of those.
Please.
Won't be the last.
Dr. Sheridan, please continue.
So you've both mentioned it more than once. This idea of fun. Like obviously, neither of you are professional powerlifters. I think, Chad, you're a coach. You make your living out of coaching. The powerlifting's the thing you do. Like that's what got you where you are to a certain extent. But I know in my own training, like I got away from training for powerlifting for a while, and still am a little bit, because it just wasn't fun anymore. I did it for so long back to back that it wasn't fun. And I'd just like you to sort of expand on the idea that you can train for 24 years and it can still be fun. You can still be making progress, and it doesn't have to be this thing where you hate training and you're in pain all the time.
Yeah, I mean the progress I think is really the fun part.
Yeah.
The process of the training, from a day-to-day basis, the best designed training, the most soundly scientific principles of strength training designed program is going to be pretty monotonous. Like it's not, a fun new exercise every week where you get to make a new PR every week. It's
You mean we don't have to do a different variation every week?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
and we see this a lot in online coaching stuff that people want a novelty for the sake of novelty without understanding that like getting strong involves a lot of boring work. But I said that I'd rather be bored for 12 weeks to make a big PR on the day that it matters than to have a fun new PR every week for 12 weeks to kind of just have a day when it counts. So they talk about being like process oriented or enjoying the process, and it's not even so much an enjoyment maybe, but an understanding of this is what is necessary, for the greatest long-term results. So being able to be an adult and have some delayed gratification towards it, I think is really important.
And it's for seasons, and the peaking block is for this long.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy. I was talking to Jen Thompson at the Grand Prix, and I was like, I actually enjoy the training more than I do like competing on the platform. Like I enjoy like the whole process of it and building up to that, that day. But
I enjoy the meet more than the training.
Yeah,
I'm like
more
your best
that.
client. I don't complain.
No, you don't. Usually not.
Sometimes I do. Usually.
You're allowed to complain.
Leads me to taking a rage shower. I just have to leave.
He got mad at me one
shower
time
off
and
my
left.
anger.
And showered again.
And I stormed out of the garage like, I'm going to take a shower.
And then
Rage
Chris and I
shower.
just made fun of him.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I would too.
It was hilarious.
That's a new concept. I'm going to use
Rage
that one.
shower, yeah.
I'm going to go and have a rage shower.
Plus, like then going into like a hypertrophy block, the general training, it just keeps it, fresh. So you're not feeling like you're always having to put heavy weight. Just that mental. Like when I see some people's training online, I'm like, I don't know how they compete, and then it's just like heavy every week, heavy. I couldn't get myself to that point.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
So what do you guys think is the biggest thing that kills powerlifters, that stops powerlifters being powerlifters, I should say?
Not having blocks, designated blocks, not taking a step back and having the hypertrophy block in there. It's just heavy all the time, and eventually your body's just going to break down.
They just break.
Yeah, and I notice a lot, even like with Australian lifters, they just focus on the big three. There's no like bodybuilding, there's no accessory stuff in there, specifically with the women, and they wonder why their bench is like,
All other countries suck at benching.
yeah.
It's a really American thing. I've noticed for a long time, like, Americans are consistently much, much better benchers than almost anywhere else. I would like to think a lot of that's like the football mentality that comes out of it. Like, bench has always been such a huge part of what all the NFL players and stuff do, but yeah, I don't know. I think bench is dumb, but that might be because I suck at it.
Because we were in Ireland a few months ago too, and it was the same thing. There's
Big squat, big deadlift, terrible bench.
Yeah.
I think the phasic structure of training can definitely be a very beneficial thing. Emphasis on transitional block or general training, but also being willing to take one step back to then take 2 steps forward or 3 steps forward. And part of that is in doing general training blocks to raise work capacity to build muscle rather than just trying to put 1 rep max or 3 rep max PRs on the bar all the time, but also whether it's 1 step back in terms of injury workarounds, rehab, prehab type of things, so you can get more hard training after the fact. And it's like a week or a month or 2 months in the moment seems, especially if you got it rolling and you're training really well, seems like a lifetime. But then a year after the fact, when you're healthy and lifting well, it's like, oh, that was nothing. Or you could be a year later still dealing with the same shit and really be kicking yourself in the ass about it.
Yeah, and I think that hits the nail on the head about what longevity is, Stop looking at powerlifting as 12-week blocks for competitions. That's not how it works,
I think a lot of people are looking at it as 1 day. And because in 12 weeks, it's like you're going to have good days, you're going to have less good days. And it's all going to kind of shake out in the end, as long as when you know that you're feeling a little run down, you're like, all right, I'm going to take 5 kilos off or 10 kilos off or do a set less or make an exercise modification so the next day can be better instead of just, beating your head against the wall and one bad day turns into a bad week, turns into a bad month.
Yeah.
I like Matt Vincent's got an excellent little spiel he does about how you've got good days, you've got bad days, and you've got average days, and it's a bell curve. And the law of averages says, you're going to have as many shit and average days or more shit and average days than you do good days. And understanding that, I think that's an integral part of the process. And if you can accept that and know that, you're not defined by that one shitty day you had in the gym, life's going to be a lot easier.
Like a lot of times in the programs I write a range of intensity and volume. So maybe it would be 4 to 5 sets of 6 at 70 to 75%. I don't care if the person does 4 sets of 6 at 70%, the lowest end of that range, because as over the long term, they're going to have days where they do the high end of the range where they feel good. When you push it to the higher end, the next day you're probably more tired, so then you go to the lower end. And it's as long as they get the minimum one done, if that's all they did every single session was just the minimum amount, they'd still get stronger. Maybe not quite as fast, but they'd still be improving. Where the people who want to go off the program and I know you said that, but I went to a 6 rep max instead, and you just can't. It's just not a sustainable thing to keep doing that over and over.
On that front, so obviously you yourself, but both of you have been exposed to lifters of all ranges of experience and achievement levels. The discussion Thomas and I were having would be that it's interesting to hear, or we would like to hear, what you see as the common mistakes across the board that beginners and elite lifters make, but also what are the big differences in mistakes? What do elite lifters screw up more than beginner lifters, and that sort of area? Does that make sense? Is that a poorly explained question? Because I feel like it is.
I'd say the common one between them is being too much focused on just the result of that one day. Because I have very, very high level lifters who, when they have a bad day, it's panic mode. We need to change everything. And
shit the bed, it's not working. Scrap this, start again.
And so that they get caught up too much in that. Things that beginners do. I think beginners get too concerned with the immediate, the short-term result of how much is my 1 rep max going up, this week compared to last week, and it's and then I think they hit a plateau because it didn't go up for 3 weeks in a row, and they just fail to see the bigger picture of someone who's been training for 20 years, and there's a lot of times where it doesn't go up for 3 weeks in a row or 3 months in a row or
sometimes
even
3 years.
Even longer than that. So and then advanced lifters. I think it's going to be a lot more individualized. Every really advanced lifter, the real elite lifters who people are watching on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, they're all fucking up their own things differently. But maybe a lack of honest self-assessment there could be a big, more common thread through advanced lifters. You got anything?
No, basically echo what you say. I think especially for women specifically is realizing it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It takes time to put on muscle. You're not going to start lifting today in a year.
You look like Chad.
No.
I'd hope not.
It's ruined all my dreams.
And you tell people that oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe in 10. No one wants to hear it's going to take 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
Everyone wants it right now.
Yeah, those women's lifters better get those fractional plates.
Yep.
Gonna put those to work. Because you could have a girl benching 50 kilos and she could make a pretty massive improvement in her strength, and she's strong enough to bench 52 kilos. And
an extra half a kilo.
Yeah, if I'm at a 4% improvement in my bench press in the course of one training cycle, I would be pumped. But that 50 kilo bencher could do that and not make a PR at the meet and come away pretty dejected from that. Yeah, have those fraction plates, ladies.
I had another question there. It's just completely slipped my mind. Thomas?
That's all right. I think it's about time to wrap it up. I think you guys have a squat workshop to present very shortly.
So you guys are going to Pro Roll this weekend. This is obviously going to come out some substantial amount of time after Pro Roll. So in the event that you want to do some future predictions and, you know, come out like you're some powerlifting god, what are you looking forward to watching? What are you
Nostradamus.
excited about?
Chad Stradamus.
At Pro Raw?
Yes.
I mean, I'm excited to coach my athlete Alex Deacon there, 90 kilo Australian national record holder. Set a good training cycle. A little bit heavier class and a very good competition with our good friend Patrick Morrison. See my boy Krita in action, and then it's supposed to be Odell's first meet in
2 years.
Yeah, since this meet 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And just a super nice guy, an incredibly strong, talented lifter, and good Lord, who knows what Vlad Alhazov's gonna try and put on the bar. I saw that one attempt card posted with all 3 attempts.
Marcus's favorite. That's
Yeah.
Marcus's favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Is write out fake attempt cards and create hype. with
That's
fake
like
attempt
Marcus's thing since the advent of him on Facebook, after vehemently hating Facebook for many, many years.
cards. Yeah, it's been interesting watching that 360.
Yeah, but yeah, he'll lift some huge weights. I'm sure Tom Martin will lift some huge weights. I competed in Australia 4 times. 4 of the last 5 meets I did were in Australia, and they keep coming back because they have great meets here and just a great community of powerlifting. So I always enjoy it.
Maybe one last question. What do you think in Australia we could be doing better in powerlifting?
You could walk your squats out a bit more, but it's hard for me to really see something to criticize here. Some of that I'm probably not close enough to it to know some of the inner workings, but it seems like there's great competition at the state and national level. There's real nationals. There's these big money meets. There's
novice competitions for new lifters, which is really good.
There's a shitload of good powerlifting gyms.
You guys have the best gyms.
Yeah, so much more well equipped than really anything in the U.S. So I don't know. It seems like you guys are doing a good job.
Awesome.
We have questions to ask that we didn't ask our last guest.
Do you have them?
Maybe.
If not, we can...
Yeah, do some editing magic. We had Nathan Jones on the podcast a while ago. When we first started doing this, we had a discussion about how we would have like a thread of common questions that we would ask our guests, and then we promptly forgot to ask Nathan those questions. And now I don't know that I have them anywhere. There it is. There you go. I do have them. Organised, professional. So you can both answer these separately or together if you want.
At the same time.
Wait until you've got a joint Facebook account. You'll be sweet. So the first one's your favourite lifting memory. It can be your own lifting memory. It can be one as a coach. Yeah. What's your favourite lifting related memory?
Mine is the Arnold Grand Prix when broke the world record and getting to experience that with Chad and watching his faces. He makes the best faces.
I've got great faces.
He steals my shine, basically. He's stealing my shine all the time because now every picture is. I'm even cut off of some of these. Like it's just his face.
Some of the photos I've seen of Marisa on the platform with Chad in the background pulling some god-awful face. They're like, maybe you're watching something on your phone, maybe you're watching the lifting. It's really hard to tell sometimes.
God-awful seems a bit harsh. I'd say that was my favorite as a coach, that or come back at 2017 IPF Worlds. As a lifter, the one that probably stands out to me the most would have been GPA Worlds in 2014. Was the first time I totaled 1,050. Missed my second deadlift Ed Cohen gave me a little bit of advice, name drop.
Sorry, I know it's all right. We did a Facebook video earlier and did the same thing.
Yeah, he gave me a little bit of advice on the back, and came back and made a 365 deadlift, first time over 800 pounds, and for the 1050. So that was one that really stands out to me.
Yeah, cool. Second question: if you had sort of one piece of advice that you could give to someone who's new or very new to the lifting world, what would that be? I feel like we've just done a whole podcast on this, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, take time after a competition to effectively assess what you did well, what you can improve on, and dedicate some time to that stuff. And so often it's going to be getting healthy, maybe some technical changes before you ramp up into harder training and trying to make PRs all the time.
Marisa, anything
I
to
would
add to
say,
that?
yeah, just have fun, get used to redundancy, and
Perfect. So this one is about what's a belief that you've had, because obviously you Chad especially, you put out all this content around your beliefs around training and how you do things. What's a belief that you've had in the relatively recent past that you were, line in the sand, this is what I believe, but you've since changed your mind?
Recently, I don't know if I could find one there. I mean, if we go a little bit further, I used to think that West Side was really effective, and I changed my mind a bit on that. Probably how specific or my understanding of specificity in terms of how it relates to exercise selection, and that there are times in training where the competition exercise is just not that important, and maybe even a detriment to do it too often.
Marisa?
oh my god, it's hard. I think I'm fortunate that
You don't have to make any decisions.
yeah,
Chad do all of it?
Chad does all the decisions, but I never.
She's a meathead. She just
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect athlete, man.
Yeah,
Turn
yeah.
up, does everything you say.
And then I don't question it. I just do what I'm told. But
Perfect.
no, I think I'm fortunate because when I started training, I didn't have to come up in so much information overload.
Yeah.
I came from bodybuilding, and so powerlifting, in the beginning, I just didn't know what I was doing. I trained as a bodybuilder, jumped in, and then just jumped straight on to the Chad boat.
Featuring the boat show.
Yeah, I was going to say the big boat, special shoes,
Olympic shoes.
Olympic shoes. They're just an Olympic sport.
And I just trust the process, and it's worked. I
Don't have to question. That's perfect. The last one is somewhat cliched, but an important question nonetheless. If you had the opportunity to sit down with someone still living, which was the caveat we put on this, and share a meal, perhaps drink a beer or two, who would you choose? You're not allowed to say Thomas because we're going to do that now.
A powerlifting type of person, or
No, it could be anyone. So Thomas chose Heston Blumenthal when we discussed this. I think I went down a similar vein. I went with Anthony Bourdain or something like that.
Who's Heston Blumenthal?
He's a celebrity chef.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's renowned for
Extreme gastronomy.
so he does a lot of this apple looks like an apple, but it's actually ice cream. Yeah.
He's just got a really cool story. I like
Self-taught.
I like chef stories.
Yeah. Basically, Thomas is still a fat kid at heart.
Very much so.
Still living.
So yeah, it doesn't have to be powerlifter. Doesn't have to be related to training. Could be. Anyway.
Do you have one that you can say?
I mean, I've always loved Jean-Claude Van Damme, but
Oh, that sounds more like a date.
he said I could be with anybody. So,
It's within the bounds of the question.
yeah.
Are you guys gonna do?
He's gonna do his crazy
Splits
dance.
the whole
Yes,
time?
he can do the
Wow.
splits. Yes.
Okay, well,
Maybe if you were better at the splits, Jack, you wouldn't have this problem.
let's get these chairs out of the way.
Let's get 2 trucks right now.
Fuck, I would pay good money to see that.
Let's see.
Make this podcast a hit.
It's very
when it
mobile.
first goes.
He's got a vicious toe point.
Someone still living. I I should have a better answer in here. I'm just
I
kinda
don't think
drawn.
you like fanboy over anybody. That's what makes it hard.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to necessarily be someone you fan, but it's just someone you want to spend some time with that you haven't already. I mean, I think you're in a unique situation in the lifting realm where I'm sure you've met almost, or at least a lot of the people that early on were people that perhaps you aspired to be, or
Yeah.
idolized in many ways. Because I know when I first started powerlifting, I couldn't have dreamt of like sitting down and being in a nightclub with Ed Cohn, but it's happened. I've been there at some point. He's a terrible dancer, but
Well, he's the whitest person ever.
he's definitely up
So
there.
he put the baby powder on to make him look tanner. Someone who, like, I listen to a lot of non-lifting podcasts and stuff like that. Malcolm Gladwell is someone I really enjoy his podcast, and he's been able to talk to so many interesting people in the world that I could probably
Live vicariously through him.
yeah. I could get a lot of information of a lot of the interesting people I'd like to talk to all through him. It'd be like a one-stop shop for that. So
Fair enough.
Really cool. Good answer.
Excellent.
it just took me long enough. So
Yeah, well, sometimes it takes time.
Things take time. That's right.
Exactly. We just
All right,
did a whole
guys.
podcast on that.
Thank you so much for joining us today. All the best in your travels. Safe travels home.
I'd like to do the where can people find you thing, but I feel like that's irrelevant when people are listening to our podcast.
I feel
Probably
like it's a
already know who you
direct
are.
rip-off of the Jug Life as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like this whole podcast is kind of a direct rip-off.
Does that make me chat? Or Max?
Definitely.
All right, I'm definitely.
I'm Max. He commented on one of my videos. I was so stoked.
Perfect.
All right.
Excellent.
That's Peak Speak. Join us next time.
Tell your friends.